Gamers, we're back and we're here with another video and another tier list. And this is the last tier list, not of this year, of this expansion, if you will. So the DLC is coming soon, and I'm not going to be making a tier list until a couple of weeks in, probably, because I need to try and learn the new civs, and I need to, you know, figure out what's good, what's not good, and yada yada. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening there. I'm not going to include the 4 new civs, but I am going to talk about what to expect from the 4 civs based on what we've seen, or just my general opinion, what's going to happen in the DLC and old civs, and old civs interacting with the new ones. So this civ tier list is going to be on land maps specifically, and this is, in my opinion, for tippity top level gameplay. Now, mind you, I have not played the last tournament, so I might not have like the complete knowledge, but based on the games that I've played in the past couple of weeks and based on the tournament results and games that I've seen, this is my tier list. One more thing to say before we go on. A lot of these civilizations will most likely remain the same going into the new DLC. I'm assuming there are not going to be some massive changes where like a civ goes from S tier to D tier. I think we're past those times in the game. So if a civ is S tier, maybe it's going to go down to A tier, but I don't think they're going to like severely nerf or severely buff any civs to where it goes from D tier to S tier. So maybe it's going to be small movements here and there. You know, we'll see what they're going to cook up. That being said, let's get started with the most obvious one. I personally think, so a lot of the pro players think another civ is the best civ in the game. I think China is by far the best civ. I just think it's completely broken, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, unless the pro scouting gets nerfed in the DLC, China will remain the best civ, because it's just insane. The amount of units you can make, the pro scouting, the castle rushing, it is all way, way too good. And it's been like this for a long time, so it's not a new thing. The next one that's actually come back. So I took 2 weeks break, and then I didn't play the last tournament, and basically a new meta developed with House of Lancaster, because House of Lancaster wasn't picked like at all because of all the mana nerfs and stuff. Basically, people figure out a new way to play House of Lancaster, which I like to call the baboon style, and that's Abbey of Kings, and then just massing units. So it is very, very strong, and even though the Hobalars are not, they don't have massive damage against non-ranged units, just the sheer amount that you can make makes up for that, as well as Kings, or Lords, sorry. They have way too much armor and HP and damage in Feudal Age, so they're just extremely, extremely tanky. I personally think that these 2 civs are above quite a bit the other civs. There's some civs, actually, I'm going to add a row below. And we're going to put this as S, and this is going to be S+. In the S tier, we're going to put Jushi Legacy, which very similar reasons to China. I just think China is better because they can make Imperial officials from Imperial Academy. More or less the same playstyle. China just has better eco. The next one is going to be Byzantine. Byzantine is very, very strong. I feel like people kind of figured out how to play Byzantine against pro scouting a while back, and I still think it's extremely, extremely good, and one of the top picks for a lot of players. And you can see that like whenever the tournaments are played and run, they're picked very, very often. The next civilization, we're gonna go Japanese. Now this is in no specific order for the S tier. I don't really know in which order I would put these civs, but Japanese is very, very strong, and yes, even on land maps. It's funny, Japanese is no longer played on water maps or hybrid maps. It's mostly played on land maps these days, and it is very, very strong. I think I have a video discussing why Japanese is so strong on my YouTube channel, so if you're interested more about that, you can check it out. But in general, their economy is really strong. They don't need food, or they don't need food on the like outside of their base for quite a long time. Yumi archers are really good. Mounted samurai are really good. The next civilization, let's do some bottom tier goblins. D tier, the worst civ in my opinion right now, together with, I'm just gonna put OTD straight away. The worst two civs in the game at the top level are Order of the Dragon for land maps and English for the land maps. Now these civs are both actually played on water maps, On land maps, they're just very slow, very bad. OTD units are just very slow, and I always said this, but I would rather have 10 knights than 5 OTD knights. Like 10 normal knights than 5 OTD knights, because you can do a lot more with multitasking at a pro level with 10 knights than you can do with 5. 5 is a lot easier to defend numbers wise, and you can split your units a lot better the more units you have, if that makes sense. So that just makes OTD kind of just straight up bad. The next civilization, let's do a little C tier action, is going to be Abbasid. I honestly don't think Abbasid is that bad. Maybe I'll even move them to C tier. I'm not sure, or B tier, sorry. But we'll leave it here for now. I think it's C tier. I think 2TC Abbasid is incredibly hard to pull off at the top level, but if you do pull it off, the economy feels really, really strong. So we'll keep it in C tier. Oh, another civ to join, of course, the D tier is going to be KT. So KT is actually probably the worst land civ for the top level gameplay. Maybe it's OTD, maybe it's KT, I'm not really sure. They're not it. Let's just put it that way. You're basically just behind on economy because you have 3 villagers less, and getting pilgrims against other pro players is incredibly hard. So you're just kind of behind. I don't know how else to put it. So they're OP on water maps, the best civ on water maps, and probably the best civ on hybrid maps, but on pure land maps, they're kind of doo-doo. DD mega doo-doo. Next civilization is going to be Malians, and we're just going to put them in S tier. Very, very good civ, very, very solid. I feel like Malian doesn't really have any extreme counters. I feel like they're a pretty solid pick overall. Obviously, there's some matchups where they're a bit worse, some a bit better, but, you know, Byzantine has some bad matchups, for example, whereas Malian, I feel like, is just okay to play into anything. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, this might be controversial, but I'm going to put Rus in A tier. I think a lot of these civs are very good against Rus. Byzantines good against Rus, Malians good against Rus, Jushi, China are good against Rus, Japanese good against Rus. I cannot put Rus in S tier. Rus against other civs is obviously OP as hell, but Rus compared to these civs, I feel like is not that strong. It is strong, but it's not that strong. So I'm going to have to put it into A tier. Next civilization we'll be talking about is, let's do JD. We'll call it B-. We're going to put JD there. I can't put JD next to Abbasid, but I can't put it in B tier either. I'm just going to put French and JD. French might actually be A tier, to be fair. I think French is really, really strong. Now, the reason why French is A tier, JD is B-. JD is slower civ. Like, yes, there's a hero, and yes, sometimes the hero does a lot in the game, but at the same time, if your JD is not leveled, you're just playing French without the faster villager production, which actually slows down your economy quite a bit. So I'm gonna have to put French in A tier. I think whenever you play these two civs, at least for me personally, French just feels a lot better. Transitions seem a lot better. The amount of units you can make seem a lot better. Whereas with JD, I feel like if you lose hero, you lost like 1/3 of your army. And some of the matchups like versus Byzantine or Malian where they can snipe your JD, it can kind of feel pretty rough. But then if the game starts going your way, it feels pretty good. Next one, HRE. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think HRE is still strong. It did drop off in popularity quite a bit among top players. I would say all these civs and these ones are picked over HRE. Well, maybe not French, but these ones. But I think HRE is still pretty strong. Even though, like I said, it's fallen off. I think it's still good. It still has its place. And I think this is the part of the game where players are kind of... we already seen this in the last two tournaments, but players have certain picks that they just like playing, even if the pick is not as strong. So I would personally put HRE maybe higher, but based on what I've seen and based on what I've played against, I'll put it in A tier, but maybe I would pick HRE more than the other players because I love HRE and I love playing HRE and I think I'm pretty good with them, right? Maybe I wouldn't pick Japanese because I'm bad with them, right? So I think that's where players' kind of subjective opinion comes in and what they're comfortable with playing. So Next one, we'll do Mongol. I'm gonna have to put Mongol into B tier. I think Mongol is better than JD a little bit, slightly higher, even though it's a full land map. I think Mongol with Mangudai can do quite a bit, although we haven't seen players in tournaments be brave enough to use Mongol in that way, like to play it on land maps. But I think Mongol is just the difference with Mongol between winning and losing is like you lose a Mangudai or two and it's like your pressure is just sunk to the bottom, I feel like. So against some of these top civs when you play Mongol, I feel like you have to play really well and you can't really afford to lose any units, and if you do, you're just gonna fall massively behind. But if you do it well, it's actually really hard and annoying to play against Mongol. So I'm gonna put it into B tier. And if I put Mongol into B tier, then I have to put Delhi into A tier. Delhi has been played the same way since the release of the game, and it has some pretty bad counters. Well, like French and JD, for example, are really good into Delhi, but overall I think Delhi is still a very, very good civ, and I don't think anybody can play Delhi in the top level equally well, even though it's fairly simple. I think the transitions are sometimes pretty difficult. The next one, maybe Mongol is B minus actually. I'm gonna put Mongol B minus. B tier, we're gonna be putting Ayyubid. I think Ayyubid is, I mean, it's literally dead middle here. I think Ayyubid can be good, or it's either really like good and it feels like how do you beat this, or it just feels terrible. And I don't know if this is due to matchups or the way the game plays out, but sometimes Ayyubid feels amazing, sometimes it feels really shit. I actually think that if Pro Scouts in the next DLC was nerfed even slightly bit, Ayyubid would be like A or even S tier. Because the way Ayyubid plays is super aggressive and Manjaniks are completely OP. Like, completely OP. So if you get to that point where you're building Manjaniks and you're attacking, I find it extremely hard to defend, but I think getting to that point and being on equal footing is what the hard part is about Ayyubid. And I also think not every pro player plays Ayyubids, but some players value them pretty highly. So now Ottoman is a bit of a weird one for me. A lot of people have been playing a lot of Ottoman in the tournament, in the most recent tournament that is. So it used to be like only Anatan and Louis playing Ottoman and maybe like one or two more players. But now a lot more players are practicing Ottoman, and I think a lot of them would put Ottoman into maybe A tier. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I might be wrong. This is the one I feel like I might be wrong. Out of all of these, I feel like this one is the one I'm probably, if wrong, the most wrong about. Maybe it is better. I've seen a lot of players pick it like third in their Civ draft, which I was like, well, like, there's a lot of other Civs you could be playing, but a lot of pro players are now looking at Ottoman like it's very good. So I'll put it in B tier, but like I said, maybe it is higher. Who knows? And there's been a lot of like reinventing the wheel with Ottoman. I feel like a lot of people are skipping military schools until castle. Some people are building them immediately upon reaching, in Dark Age and Feudal Age. Mixed results, but a lot of people are picking them. Now, as far as the new civilizations, this is the Macedonian dynasty. This is the Tughlaq dynasty, the Delhi variant. This is the Byzantine variant. This is the Japanese variant, Sungoku Empire. And then this is the Mongol Golden Horde variant. Now, based on what I've seen, I think it's hard to predict the Japanese variant because there's a lot of mechanics that are very unique and that I don't really know how they're going to turn out. And there's some things we don't know how they actually work, okay? So this is a question mark for me in how it's going to play out. Macedonian dynasty is going to be a top tier civ because of the fact that they have a production building that can produce different types of units, aka they can produce spearmen and archers from the same building. I think that's incredibly strong. Is this going to be unbeatable S+ tier? I mean, it's hard to say. I do think it's going to be somewhere here based on like just what we saw and what we, the info we got and what we read. mainly because of that building. The Mongol variant, heavily dependent on the actual numbers, so they have like a mechanic where they can produce extra units and they can use stone in a lot different ways than Mongol can. And they have those like new types of farms, I guess you could call them, or like pastures, where the villagers go in and they don't take a lot of space, it seems, but you can put a lot of villagers on it. That is either going to be giga expensive and useless, or it's not going to take a lot of space and it's going to boost up a shit ton of your economy. It's going to be OP. The fact that you can also make uvus more than one means that the Civ will heavily rely on stone. I personally think that this is a question mark. I think this is going to be a good Civ, probably an aggro Civ, I would imagine. Mongol Horde can either, Golden Horde can either be really good or really underwhelming because of the mechanic that the Civ has, right? And then, based on what I've seen for Tughlaq Dynasty, the fact that they have workers that at the top level, the pro players will be able to utilize very well, they're basically going to be like KT workers where they just don't need to drop off wood. Think of their workers like that if you manage your eco properly. I think this Civ has the potential to be the most overpowered Civ out of them all, just because of the little elephants where you drop off the resources, and the fact that your upgrades research immediately. They are more expensive, right? But they research immediately. That is very, very strong at the top level play, because it means you can greed out heavily, and as you're getting attacked, you just get the military upgrades then. So you can basically get more units or more eco and then quickly get the upgrades and catch up with your opponent in whatever they were doing. This has the potential to be most OP. This is going to be, I think, pretty good. This can be shit or good, and this, I'm genuinely not sure. One thing we do know is civilizations on release so far in AoE 4 have been either completely OP or a complete miss. Like, rarely, I can't remember which Civ was like from the new ones, even from Malian and Ottoman, that was released and was like, okay. They were either too strong or too weak. Like, if we look back at Ottoman and Malian, they were pretty weak on release, and then they got buffed multiple times. If we look at JD, it was completely broken. OTD was pretty shit. Jushi was OP. Ayyubid was OP. You know what I mean? Like, and then you have Japanese and Byzantines. People didn't know how to play Byzantines initially, so it was pretty bad. Japanese also, I think, didn't have very high win rates, but then obviously people learn how to play them because they were very unique. And then the last two, KT is just terrible on land, and then Lancaster, it took people, I mean, I remember as I was playing the DLC, I figured out a build in like 20 minutes, and that's the Manor Boom, right? And then everyone obviously was doing that for super long until it got nerfed. So I wouldn't really expect these Civs to be any different. So if I had to pick right now, if I had a potato up my head and they said pick two Civs that are going to be good and two Civs that are going to be bad, I'm going to pick these two that are going to be really good, and this one, I don't know, but if I had to split him, I would put him like this. But we will see. Who knows? Maybe this one is going to be the most broken and this one's going to suck. So that's going to be it. This is the last tier list before the DLC. Once I play the new Civs and once I learn more about them, I'm going to make another tier list with the new civilizations and kind of sort my ranking. And obviously, we have to as well see the changes that are going to be making in the new DLC, because there's always a big patch. So we'll see. Maybe some of the old Civs will go up and down. But like I said, I wouldn't expect any extremes where a Civ goes like here and then the S tier goes there. Unless they nerf pro scouting, and that can change up things quite a bit. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching, brother. I appreciate that. And if you're watching live, let's keep going.